Hi, this is Eric Cressy with New Balance and Area Code Baseball. We're here at Cressy Sports Performance in Jupiter, Florida, and today I'm going to show you an exercise we use to turn on the rotator cuff before you go out and throw. All you need is a dugout wall, or really any wall for that matter. Ian's going to set up with his back to the wall, and then he's going to kind of rotate towards the arm that he's going to use. Okay? You'll notice his elbow's fixed right up against that wall. If you want, you can even slide a glove or a sweatshirt somewhere between your hands. It makes it feel a little bit better. What we're going to do is he's going to control from this position right up here. You'll notice that he's got his core in a neutral position. He's got his hand right on the front of that shoulder. So he's monitoring that as he externally rotates, that doesn't pop forward into his hand. So he's going to come up, he's going to give it a 1/1000 hold against the wall and really feel it in the back of his shoulder, and then come on back down. So let's do a few reps. You'll notice that it's almost as if there's a rod going right through his elbow to his shoulder. So there's not movement up or down, it's just pure rotation through that axis. Okay. We usually do a set of 8 with a 1-second hold on the wall on each rep. And obviously if you're a hitter, you can do it on both sides as well, because you do want to be stable even on that non-throwing side. Hi guys, Eric Cressy at Cressy Performance just west of Boston. I want to take you through 4 drills that we'll use for overall shoulder health. And it's important to remember that no 2 shoulders are alike, so we need to make sure that we pick somewhat conservative exercises so that they're a good fit for just about everybody. What you're going to notice with our exercises for the shoulder is that we tend to work proximal to distal, which is just a fancy way of saying that we start in the middle and we work our way out. So all these exercises kind of begin with setting the core and building some upper back mobility before we go to the wall and work on where our shoulder blade is positioned and how our rotator cuff works. So Mike's going to demonstrate these called a back to wall shoulder flexion. And I like this because it forces you to set your core in the right position before you learn to go overhead. This is also a great exercise that you can use as somewhat of a clearing test to make sure that you're fundamentally able to overhead press in a safe way. So first thing Mike's going to do is set his feet up about 6 inches away from the wall and get right in here and flatten his back out. Okay? After he's flattened out the back, he's going to try to get the head to the wall while making a double chin. So he's pretty much a straight line from his hips all the way up to his head. What we're going to do from here is he's going to gradually start going up with his hands, noticing how he's staying out in front, not deviating to the side too much. What we're going to do is we're going to take our thumbs to the wall, and then we're going to exhale and let our ribs kind of come down a little bit. Okay? So this is a back to wall shoulder flexion, staying flat here, getting to the wall. What you're going to notice is some of you may be really tight here, or you may have posture that sets you here. There are a couple things that you can do to work around that. One, you can walk the feet a little bit further to make it easier for you to kind of create that flat back posture. So, and the second one is, if you just find yourself getting a little bit locked here, you can kind of make it a little bit easier for yourself just by bending your elbows to get your thumbs to the wall, and then over time we'll gradually work to the point where we can do it with a straight arm. What's very, very important though is that if you wind up having any neck pain, you have any pinching in the front, things like that, don't plow through it. Work within the comfortable range of motion that you have. Okay, so that's back to wall shoulder flexion. Usually do it for a set of 6 to 8. Okay, face towards the wall. Okay, you notice Mike's in a staggered stance. We like to go right leg forward. He's in what we call a neutral spine position. He's not in a big forward head posture. It's a nice straight line from the hips all the way up to the head. He's got a little double chin going here. We're not too arched at our lower back. What we're going to do is we're going to come up to a 135-degree angle with our arms. So as he comes up, you'll see the angle that his arms create to his spine is about 135 degrees. Once we get to that top position, all he's going to do is he's going to kind of tip those shoulder blades back, and then his hands come back to the wall, and then he slowly comes back down. Notice it's not this as he comes back down. He maintains good posture, comes up, leads with the thumbs, and lifts off with the shoulder blades. He's not just pulling through the arms. Instead, it's the scapula, the shoulder blades that are moving on a fixed rib cage and spine. Okay, so that's forearm wall slides at 135 degrees. We do that again for a set of 6 to 8. This is all part of our warm-up. Last one is a low-level cuff activation. We call it external rotations to wall. This is great because it doesn't require a band, doesn't require a cable column, anything like that, and it's a good way to monitor your feedback on a fixed core. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up just like we were doing the back to wall shoulder flexion, but what we're going to have Mike do is kind of line up about 15 degrees off the wall. So he's a straight line, head to hips, neutral spine, good rib cage positioning, good scapular positioning. From there, he's going to take his non-working hand and he's going to place it right at the front of the shoulder. Okay? He's not pushing that shoulder back. Instead, all he's doing is monitoring where that ball is in the socket. And what he's going to do is he's going to slowly externally rotate back and try to touch his hand to the wall. Okay? And not everybody will be able to get all the way back, and you'll notice he needs to bend his wrist a little bit to get there. But the important thing is that he feels it in the back of his shoulder here, and that this isn't popping forward. So it's very important for shoulder health that we learn how to maintain the ball in the socket. And as we externally rotate, there's a tendency for this to want to come forward. So he's using this hand just to monitor where he goes. He's going to come back, push against the wall for a second if he can do it, and then he's going to relax. What I don't want to see you doing is pulling that elbow really far back against the wall, because that'll make everything tip forward. Okay? So we call that external rotation.
Guys, we're going to take you through the 3 cues that I find myself using the most when teaching serratus anterior drills. Serratus is really, really important for teaching the shoulder blade to kind of wrap around the rib cage and get into a good position of upward rotation while keeping that scap snug to the rib cage. The 3 that I find myself using over and over again are reach, round, and rotate. When we do the serratus anterior drills, it's very important to make people realize that we're trying to get movement of the shoulder blade on the rib cage, not just movement of the actual arm on the scapula or elbow extension. So when we go through a drill like this, a lot of people will just extend their elbows or they'll crank through the front of their shoulder. What we want people to really do is get that good wrapping feeling. So when we say reach, we're actually kind of using that reach to push ourselves away from the wall. So you want preferential scapulothoracic movement. If you see a ton of elbow extensions, straight arms, it's usually a sign they're moving too much through the arm, or they're really going up excessively through the elbows and insufficiently here. So instead, with a good serratus wall side with a roller, really we're limited by the roller here, and all that motion is really coming from the scap, and you realize that there's still a slight bend in that elbow. So that's the reach portion, reach through the shoulder blades. The second thing you'll see is a lot of the folks that really need serratus recruitment are the ones with a really flat upper back, so it's a straight up and down position. We want them to round. So what I'll actually do is I'll go up and I'll put my hand right in their upper back and I'll say, fill up this space. So push back against me and actually create that good thoracic curvature so the shoulder blades can stay snug to the rib cage. So you realize that he's recreated that effective kyphosis that puts those shoulder blades in a good position. So you've got reach, you've got round. The last thing I'll do when I coach these exercises is I'll cue the actual rotational component. So we'll get right in and we'll actually guide those shoulder blades around to the armpits. So I'll usually take my finger, put it right on the inferior medial border, the inside on the bottom, and I'll actually help them guide it around so that we make sure that they only feel it down here in serratus. You'll also get some feedback. If folks get any kind of like pinching in the front, it's usually a sign they're moving too much from that portion of the shoulder girdle. So reach, round, and rotate to get good serratus anterior function on the rib cage.
Hi guys, I want to show you a coaching cue that we use with our wall slides with upward rotation and lift off. This is a drill we use with a lot of, not just our throwers, but our general population clients and other athletes to really emphasize good scapular upward rotation. We see a lot of people where their shoulder blades stay too far down and the head of the humerus kind of rides up so the ball sits too high in the socket. So we want to work on getting more upward rotation. We teach the wall slides with upward rotation and lift off. So Connor's going to show you a couple of good reps here, what they might look like. You'll notice as he goes up, the shoulder blades kind of rotate up. When he gets to the top, he's going to do a little bit of a lift off using those low traps back on the wall, and he's going to slowly come back down and not dive into downward rotation. Okay? What we'll sometimes see with these folks is instead of going up to a good pattern where maybe they're about 160 degrees of shoulder abduction, what we'll often see with folks is they'll almost dive towards the midlines with their hands. What you'll see is a little bit more bunching up right in here. And what's actually happening is there's a little bit of medial or internal rotation of the humerus that takes place. So think about what your lats do, right? They attach down your low back, they might pull you into extension, they might pull you into scapular depression, they'll also pull you into internal rotation. So if we want to get our hands up overhead, we want to relax our lat, and that means we need to be a little bit externally rotated. So watch the hand position. Don't let it dive towards the midline as you come up, and certainly coach people out of the medial rotation that might take place if those lats are really, really dominant, because we want to turn them off in multiple planes of motion.
We use J-bands a lot, not just because they're a great piece of training equipment, but because they offer us a lot of convenience in terms of bringing them to the field, rigging them up on a fence or wherever we may be. So what's good about them is a lot of people think that these are just arm care exercises. They're actually arm care exercises, but at the same time we can use these bands to do a lot of core control work. So what I think is great is we can teach guys how to efficiently use their rotator cuff with a variation like, you know, a band external rotation at 90 degrees. We can teach them how to control their shoulder blades if we do something like a Y, or getting some good upward rotation of their shoulder blades. And we're teaching them how to posteriorly tilt their scapula to improve some good core control. The other thing we can talk about doing is various exercises that would be good for core control. So getting them out just a little bit wider so we get some good hip mobility. We might do a wide stance anti-rotation chop. So we're basically telling guys bear hug a tree, resist the rotation that the band implies. We may do something like a core engaged dead bug, where we'll set the band up a little bit lower, lay right down on the ground, brace our core nice and tight, get this rigged in, drop down, exhale fully, go down here. So in this case, we're resisting the effect of gravity that's trying to push us down to the ground and arch our low back. So bands can be a great versatile tool that you may carry in your bag when you go to the field to work on cuff strength, scapular control, hip mobility, core control, you name it. Really a catch-all piece of equipment that I recommend to just about all our baseball players.